It's the weekend that decides it all. The Final Four and the National Championship game are going to be going on in Indianapolis this weekend. This is episode 128 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy. As always, we have our college basketball to talk about, like I just hinted at, Brett. We have MLB, which had their opening day on Thursday. We have some basketball and even some NHL for both Saturday and Sunday. Big episode, but first of all, how are you doing? We did have a bit of a delay in our normal podcasting schedule.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Higgins. It's all right. We just, saved ourselves for the biggest events. Wanted to make sure that no one was getting sick or any last minute injuries or anything like that. It's the Final Four, Higgins. We have to have as much information as possible.
Absolutely, we do, especially when you look at how we did last episode. I mean, I had been riding a bit of a heater through the month of March, but kind of tampered down. My only win was my UCLA moneyline pick, which I had hinted to you, Brett. I took USC and UCLA on the moneyline last week because I thought one of those underdogs was going to win. I was right, UCLA won, so that helped me. But otherwise, 4 losses, including my pick of the pod. So I drop 2 games behind the Brett Levy lock right now because you won and you're now above 50%.
Well, maybe I cheated because you were on UCLA too, so I just had to make sure it was my lock so you couldn't take it. But yeah, I placed quite a few futures. I was getting geared up for MLB season last week, Higgins. So only 1-1 on the record book. But I like to think I'm 3-0 in October, right?
I went plus 6.39 units for the month of March. You're plus 489 units. However, with those 3 futures, we might be talking in a few months about how you actually may have gone either 2.89 units or maybe in the tens, maybe in the 20s for your units. Who knows? I mean, you got the Corey Seager plus 1,500. You got the Braves plus 1,000 to be World Series champs. Then you got the Rays lower odd of plus 110. Who knows? Any of those could hit and help your March line, which is a nice thing to see from all the way back in October.
Yeah, I won't hate it. The Rays 1-0, so they're making me look like geniuses, Higgins.
Absolutely. Speaking of geniuses, let's talk about. We're going to go into Beginner's Boulevard, but we're going to talk about a little bit more of an intermediate term. This is called a parlay banker, and now you're forming the base of a parlay wager. You typically want to take a favorite team that you're going to build around. For example, on Saturday night in the NHL, if you're going to build a parlay, that team would probably be the Tampa Bay Lightning against the Detroit Red Wings. The Lightning on the money line are minus 400. Vegas, the sportsbooks, think that's a pretty safe bet. If you're building a parlay, unless you're building a parlay, you're not really going to get value on the Lightning at minus 400. So you take that as your foundation of what parlay you're going to make, whether it be 13 legs, whether it be 3 legs. You start with the minus 400, then you maybe throw in an underdog here or another favorite there that's not quite as big of odds, but that's kind of what I do that. I know I use parlay bankers when I'm putting together parlays of trying to take some of those big heavy odds and incorporate them just to get a little bit of a boost and try to get them into the positives.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, Higgins, we give out our Levy Lock pick of the pod, and this is what we're trying to do is find the bet that we are most confident about for our day, for our slate, and see if there are ways we can improve our odds on it, see if there are other bets we like almost just as much that maybe we want to parlay those. So yeah, I think a lot of people do this without even truly knowing the term parlay banker.
Absolutely. The parlay banker by no means is a guaranteed win, but it's typically a stronger favorite. Now, speaking about no guarantees, Brett, let's go into college basketball where we have seen upsets, we've seen some chaos, and going into the next best bet bracket challenge heading into the final weekend, we have a few scenarios of who could win, including Wayne Barker, who picked Villanova to win his bracket, but he's currently sitting on top, and there is a route for him to still win, even with Gonzaga bettors like yourself, Gonzaga champs who picked Gonzaga to win, nipping at his heels a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Higgins, we figured out that we didn't throw in a tiebreaker. So me and Chris Whitney are sitting on pins and needles during this Baylor Houston game because we both need Baylor to get there to, I guess, tie for the the championship in our bracket.
Yes, and then there's Matt Gilder, who, if Houston beats Baylor, that's good for him because he has Gonzaga and Houston in his championship game. And potentially that could help him. Obviously, he would still need Gonzaga to win. Wayne Barker needs Gonzaga because he has them in his championship game. But if Houston were to win it all, or even if Baylor were to win it all in that scenario, he would be our champion despite not having the correct champion picked. An interesting scenario we have with three scenarios, four people to play. I said when we made this, Brett, that the winner could potentially come on the podcast if they would like. You're in a position where win or lose, you will be on the podcast, but we might have a third guest or another guest coming on in the near future, depending on how this all shakes out.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. But let's get to our picks, Higgins.
Yeah, let's talk about the Final Four. The first game's going to be the Houston Baylor game on Saturday. That's a 5:15 Eastern Time start, 2:15 Pacific. And I don't think that Houston is going to do to Baylor what they've been able to do through much of their bracket so far. I mean, the Houston defense has been really good. They played fantastic against Oregon State, against Syracuse, against Rutgers, but the Baylor Bears, they're just a different animal. They average over 80 points per game and only -5 on the spread. I think this is just going to be a much different game than how Houston has played so far in this tournament, and I don't know if they can keep up, so I'm going to be taking the Bears at -5.
Yeah, I think Houston has a lot of talent, Higgins. They've done well in the transfer market. Quentin Grimes was a former 5 star. Dijon has been fantastic for Houston. He came over from UMass, I believe. So, they have talent, but Baylor's a different level to your point. Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler have been fantastic all year. They have depth on the bench with Mayer and a few other guys. So I'm really high on Baylor. I actually stayed off the -5 just because I'm actually going to be on the Gonzaga -14 in the next one, Higgins. And honestly, I was like 19 points is where I have to draw the line in the Final Four. So if I'm eating up 14 with Gonzaga, there weren't very many left over for me to take with Baylor. But I do think Baylor ends up in the championship game. So maybe I do something like we talked about earlier with a parlay banker and take that Baylor -215 and do something with that.
I was just about to bring that up. -215. If the Lightning example I gave of -400 is a little too much juice for you to want to use in a parlay, a -215 sounds like a pretty good starting block for a parlay as well. Would probably have to go across a few different sports though, because I mean, Gonzaga at -1200 is not necessarily the best team to add to that parlay. Not a lot of value to be added to that. But if you want to go across a few sports, a -215 would be an excellent parlay banker, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, Higgins, in the night game, UCLA Gonzaga, Gonzaga's laying 14. I don't care. I just think they're that good. And I've loved UCLA. I've loved that. And I'll bring it up again. These guys have played together since high school, Higgins. They've got, 4 or 5 guys from the Compton Magic AAU program all playing on this UCLA Bruins Final Four team. They've got, top 100 guys who were highly thought of, like Tiger Campbell and Mac Etienne. So Johnny Juzang. So, I mean, they're really talented, but this Gonzaga team is on another level. Jalen Suggs is a potential number 1 overall pick. Cody Kispert's a stud. Timmy's a stud. Jaye's a stud. Like, they're loaded up in Spokane.
I'm not confident enough to really go on either side of this spread, but I would say that I am hoping that you're wrong and UCLA would cover because I'm taking over 145 and a half. And if Gonzaga runs away with this, that's going to be a little harder to cover, I think, unless Gonzaga just goes out there and scores 90, then who knows? UCLA could still put up 60 and it still hits the over. But I expect this to be a little closer of a game. Gonzaga's ran through a lot of their competition so far, but UCLA, they've just been that miracle team. And this is a culture of a program that even though they may not have the most recent experience getting to this length in the tournament, they have plenty of alum that they could talk to about experience with this. 19 Final Four appearances for the Bruins. Now, that does include 11 straight when during the John Wooden era, obviously, but over 145 and a half for a UCLA team that has really just hit its stride, did a first four from the bubble team to a serious contender. I like it. I like the story. I like their offense and what I've seen from them to be able to adapt to different styles of play. And I hope they do keep up with this Gonzaga team and make it an interesting game rather than a snooze fest. So give me the over 145 and a half.
Yeah, I respect everything you're saying about the UCLA Bruins, Higgins. I'm a fan of Mick Cronin as well. Like, a lot of people didn't think it would work. Him being a Cincinnati guy for so long and then going to the West Coast, but he's here in the Final Four in year two. But maybe if they're playing Baylor or Houston, I think differently. But unfortunately, they're running into the best team in college basketball on Saturday night. Doesn't mean they can't cover. Anything can happen in a single game. But if these teams played 10 times, UCLA covers once, twice. I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Now, before we get out of our college basketball, though, Brett, you have Gonzaga in your bracket, so I would assume, like you've been riding with them for much of the tournament, you're probably going to ride with them in that championship game, depending on what the lines are. I can tell you, Baylor and Gonzaga were supposed to play earlier this season. That game got canceled. I like Baylor in that position. I'd be the contrarian to what we see in our bracket. Gonzaga as a program has never won a national championship. That is a lot of pressure to put onto a mid-major school like this that doesn't really get a lot of pressure throughout the regular season, even though they tried to schedule some harder games that all got canceled because of COVID. Baylor, they run through the Big 12. I think that it's not as big of a stage for them, and we remember what happened the last time Gonzaga, the only time Gonzaga made it to a championship game.
Yeah, I mean, none of what you said concerns me whatsoever, to be honest. I can point to a lot of negative reasons to doubt the Baylor Bears. I don't need to bring it all up, but yeah, nah, not for me. Like,
Fair enough, fair enough. Let's move on to some MLB. Like I said, on Thursday was opening day, and it started off rather snowy up in Detroit. We got to see Miguel Cabrera hit a home run, even though he didn't necessarily know it. He slid into second and had to be told by the ref, hey, just so you know, you should keep going. That was a home run. Ended up, I think it was his 350th as well. What an interesting way to hit a landmark or milestone home run like that. But Brett, I'll be honest, I've been pretty busy with work so far this week, so I haven't really gotten a chance to tune into the regular season MLB yet. I'm going to take this weekend to kind of get a feel out, watch some baseball, get a lay of the land, come back next episode with some game picks and kind of have a better sense. So I'm not going to risk it and give out any picks. However, I feel good talking to you about all the games that you're on.
yeah, and Higgins, you mentioned that Miggy play. The craziest play of opening day had to have been the Justin Turner running back on the. I mean, give Tapia credit. He definitely had a great opportunity to catch that ball, but when he hit the wall, clearly goes over the wall. Justin Turner does not care, does not see it, keeps running back to first at full speed. Passes Bellinger, takes a home run away from Bellinger, takes a run off the board for the Dodgers. So lots of crazy home runs on opening day. Just tons of fun craziness. I'm glad to have baseball back, and on Saturday I'm focusing in on two games. Minnesota is facing Milwaukee in Milwaukee, so pitchers will have to bat Higgins in this one. That is important to note. It probably plays to some strikeout props for A's or excuse me Minnesota Twins pitchers. I don't know where I was going with the A's, but Jose Barrios is a really good pitcher for Minnesota. Corbin Burns is a pretty good pitcher for Milwaukee as well. I could see this one being a little low scoring, but a few big hits over the wall will probably be the difference in this one. Minnesota's got some big bats in the middle of that lineup, and Donaldson, Sano, just to name a few. But I like Minnesota plus 108 on the money line. I'm not 100% sold on Corbin Burns. He had a solid season last year, but I'm lukewarm on the Milwaukee Brewers pitching staff, Higgins.
Well, I can say I do have Corbin Burns on one of my fantasy teams, so I'll be hoping that he has a strong outing to start his season this year. But I agree, it should be a very interesting matchup between the Minnesota Wisconsin rivalry, too, to start the MLB season.
Absolutely. Anyone that tries to come in a Vikings jersey is probably not allowed. But the other game I'm on, Higgins, and we'll actually be talking about this matchup here in a little bit. But I'm going to be on the Giants and the Mariners simply because if I learned anything on opening day, it's that I need to watch this game. So having a little money on it will just only entice me. But in all seriousness, Higgins, the home team in this one at plus 100 on the money line, that's just good value for me. I feel like these teams are pretty evenly matched. And the fact that I won't have to play any juice to get the home team, I'm just taking that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. You also made a good point in the first game that I kind of want to go back to, Brett, with pitchers are going to have to hit again this year in the National League. And that's important to note for some bettors because last year we may have gotten a little comfortable with the universal DH, maybe taking a little more overs because of having that extra bat in the lineup, maybe taking some unders in those strikeout props that you were talking about because of the extra bat in the lineup. We get to see the National League with the pitchers in the lineups again. That's, like you mentioned, potentially a guaranteed out in terms of a strikeout for pitcher props and could hurt the over-unders, or you never know. I mean, Madison Bumgarner hits home runs like it's nothing, so you could still get torched by a pitcher at the plate.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, Higgins, it's gonna be each team's gonna have their own take on it, right? So, a team with Mad Bum, the Diamondbacks, they may say, "We'll let him swing because he's pretty good at it." But the Rays actually on opening day with their ace Tyler Glasnow, he just went up there and looked at three straight pitches and walked back to the dugout and did it again. And I don't really blame him. Like, we've seen some guys get hurt swinging the bat, rounding bases. If this guy's going to be your ace for the year and, you have goals to make the postseason, you're going to need him. Might as well just take the out.
Yeah, Glasnow, you see that shoulder? Just keep the bat on the shoulder.
And
That's
that's
all you
what
got
they
to do.
did.
Just stand up there and just stand up there and look pretty.
They did that for real. Like he was just, I'm good. I'm good. All right, I'll go back to the dugout now.
But Brett, you said we were going to talk about this Mariners Giants game a little bit more, and you're right because Moneyline Magic on opening night, this Mariners Giants game, absolutely deserving of the recognition.
Oh my God, what a finish, Higgins. And I didn't want to spoil it, but maybe there's a little bit of why I'm taking the Mariners. Maybe just a little. But we'll pick this one up in the bottom of the eighth. The Mariners are down 6-1, Higgins. But the Mariners would wake up after a leadoff walk. Haniger would single. Ty France would then drive home the first run of the eighth. And 2 on with no one out, a run in already, Higgins. The Giants changing pitchers. Good for them. guy comes in, walks another guy. Luckily, he got Evan White out on the next at bat with a strikeout. So now we've got bases loaded, one out, one run in. But he would walk home the next run. So we've got 3 walks in the inning, 2 hits, 2 runs. We're on our 3rd pitcher, Higgins. This is getting ugly.
Not to mention the fact that the Mariners only had 2 hits in the first 7 innings. They were able to score 1 run off a sacrifice fly off of that, but Seattle really had to get going here late. I mean, the Giants, they kind of worked more casually how you see a baseball team works of 2 runs in the second, 1 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, casually building up a lead, whereas the Mariners in the eighth, it was just no holds bars. Everyone gets a turn.
Right. So as we mentioned, 6-3, bases loaded. Very next at bat, first batter this 3rd pitcher faced. Dylan Moore would double to right, scoring 2 more runs to the Mariners. 6-5, 1 out. The struggles would not stop for the Giants as Jake Fraley gets hit by a pitch to load the bases again. Higgins, the wheels are coming off, but it seems like the Giants are going to get out of this thing. Jose Marmolis would pinch hit, and he'd actually ground it right to the first baseman. But an
Yeah,
awful throw by Brandon Belt allows for 2 more runs to score, and the Mariners take a 7-6 lead.
oof. Just touch the bag. Just touch the bag, take the easy out. No need to throw it and make things worse.
Yeah, well, luckily the bleeding would finally stop. The Mariners would not be able to do any more damage, but you'd think the Giants would be pretty hurt coming back to the dugout.
Yeah, you did. Alex Dickerson, though, would pinch hit to start the ninth, and guess what? The Giants' bats weren't cold. A pinch hit home run coming right off the bench, as cold as he should be, but he was red hot.
Unbelievable.
I was about to say he was lukewarm, but that's not even right. He was red hot.
he just he came in first at bat of the year, and he just goes deep to tie the game. That's pretty good. I don't think you could script it much better than that. In the top of the ninth, no less.
Absolutely, but then the Mariners weren't done because it's tied 7-7, so we're going to extra innings. And after a 1-2-3 inning in the top of the 10th that saw Belt, Flores, and Posey, a pretty intimidating trio to have to get through, the Mariners, Trammell gets walked. Moore gets walked. So you have Trammell on second, White on third, and Moore on first. Then Fraley gets walked. A bases loaded walk-off walk?
It's crazy, right? I mean, welcome back, baseball. Some madness in Seattle on opening night. They could not locate the strike zone the last 3 innings. It was brutal for Giants pitchers. That 8th inning is going to haunt the Giants for a long time, I think. Being up 6-1 in the 8th and just absolutely falling apart. The error to give up the lead, and then actually Alex Dickerson to come into the game and hit the home run. Like, okay, maybe there's a little hope. Maybe they're not going to blow this thing, and then just to walk home the run, Higgins. I just absolutely gut wrenching way to lose a game.
Not to mention, 2 seasons ago, that runner wouldn't have been on second to start the extra innings. So you would have had you'd have 3 walks, and then you'd have the bases loaded, and you'd have to worry about it. But no, 3 walks, scores a runner, game's over. Rough way to start the season for the Giants. Incredibly interesting way to end opening night, though, in Major League Baseball.
Oh, definitely a great ending, and I guess it's the reason why you should always back the team with last licks, right? Like that's kind of my thinking here. That was my lesson, Higgins. Oh, the Mariners get to bat last. Well, I might as well take them at even money.
Probably a great strategy for live betting a game that's going to extra innings. Maybe just take the home team, because if you get to start off with a guy on second, unless your defense just gives it up and puts you in a deep hole, You obviously have an advantage there.
Yeah, I
But
think so.
Brett, let's jump out of this and go into the weekend. We have some NBA games, some NHL games to talk about as well. Not a ton of NBA games to talk about, Brett. We haven't really done a next best bet recording on a Friday night before, and we learned the hard way. Not a lot of weekend NBA lines that come out early on a Friday night. We got
Ah,
three. We got three.
it happens, Higgins. It was a big Friday night slate, but you and I found ourselves on the Bucks Kings game, and honestly, it should be a pretty good one. There was an interesting no trade that happened between these teams this offseason, and Bogdanovich is obviously now playing for the Hogs, but I kind of like Sacramento here, Higgins. I don't really have a rhyme or reason. It just this feels like a spot where it's like a letdown spot for Milwaukee, and Sacramento's better than people think. De'Aaron Fox is a top five scoring player in this league right now. Harrison Barnes is a really good contributing starter. I like Tyrese Halliburton, the rookie. So Rashawn Holmes has played really well at the five spot. So the Kings have some talent, and you don't really get up to go play at Sacramento. So I could see this being a bit of a letdown spot. So I'm going to take Sacramento here plus 6.5.
Not to that I like your pick partly because where's Giannis's mindset gonna be going into a game that he knows Hassan Whiteside and Marvin Bagley are already listed as out? Who's gonna cover me? He's probably thinking he can take it easy. It's gonna be a good night. Meanwhile, you got the perimeter shooters that Sacramento has. They're going to be scoring from beyond the arc a lot. That's kind of why you're going to find me on the over in this game, even though it is outrageously high at 239 and a half, Brett. The only other time these two teams played earlier this year, that over under was set at 239 and a half. And the over hit because it was a 129 to 115 Bucks win. I expect as long as this game can stay competitive, it's going to be a rather high scoring game. And you're talking about two teams that are two of the best teams. I think the Bucks are second and the Kings are sixth in the league in terms of hitting their overs. They're just really good at it. So you have two teams that are very good at hitting their overs come together. Obviously, the over under is going to be high to reflect that. It's not going to keep me off of it, though. I'm going to take that over.
All right, Higgins. I respect it. I like it. And you know what? I think it's you have good data to back it up. These teams are hitting on those high overs, and the last two times they matched up, but no one really stopped anyone from scoring. So with two key players out for Sacramento, the scoring lane should just open up even more for Milwaukee.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting one. I expect it to be very, very high scoring. Hopefully, I'm right, though. You never know. It could have just get turned on its head, turned into a rest day, and everyone just it turns into a 90 to 80 game. You never know. Sometimes betting the day ahead. That's why we are giving the warning. This is where the opening lines are at, but obviously you want to check player statuses and find out who will be playing in these games this weekend. Let's jump into the NHL though, Brett, where most of these players will be playing in their games. You don't take many rest days in the NHL, so we have lines in Oregon for Saturday and Sunday. I had a lot of lines out here in Oregon for hockey, so I made a few picks. I made two for Saturday and I made one for Sunday. Let's take a look at Saturday's ones, and I'm going to be on your boys. I'm going to be on the Rangers minus 1.5 at plus 105. Even though they are on the road in Buffalo, they're in Buffalo. Let's just be frank about it. Come on. The Sabres have not been impressive this year, both in reality and both on betting lines against the spread. Whereas the Rangers on the road, they've actually been pretty good against the puck line so far. So give me New York minus 1.5. I get plus 105. Not the best odds for taking a minus 1.5 puck line, but at least I'm not giving or taking the juice or anything like that in this scenario.
Yeah, Buffalo's been rough this year. Definitely been a tough year for the Sabres. So I think that's a fair play. I have no faith in my team, Higgins, so that's why I'm not on it. But it's nice that you have faith in my teams. It gives me some confidence that maybe we'll do something right one year.
Well, I can't have faith in the Flyers at all, so I just think that both New York teams are going to win on Saturday, and I can't bet against the Flyers, so I'm going to bet for the Rangers. And you know what, Brett? Speaking of the Sabres, real quick, I did see an NHL writer that put out a power rankings list of the best to worst teams. The Sabres were 31. They
Who
were considered so bad that the Kraken were put on this list and said even a team that doesn't have players yet can't be this bad.
That's a little brutal, but I'll rank them 30. How about that?
That's fair. Another game that I'm going to be on Saturday, Brett, is also going to be on the puck line, and that's the Blues versus the Avalanche. And the Blues, I spoke about how bad the Sabres have been this year. The Blues are the worst against the spread this year. They are 8-26. On the road, they're 6-13. So they're abysmal at home. They're slightly better at home, but they're still losing two of every three on the puck line on the road. Meanwhile, the Avalanche, they're doing pretty well despite Nate McKinnon getting suspended for tossing a helmet at a player during a game recently. That was a strange little scenario we saw there. So the Avs are without their star, but Colorado is a very good team, and I expect that they are going to still be able to carry this. So -1.5 at +100, I still like those odds.
Yeah, the Blues have been. You mentioned it. You had the exact numbers. I just know from my gambling history. I took the Blues a few times early in the year, and then I've stayed far, far away. And like you mentioned, there's no McKinnon, but the Avs have played without him already this year, and it didn't really affect them too much. So I have no reason to doubt the Avs in this spot.
Yeah, the Blues, I think they're on that no list of teams to bet on. They have to prove it to me before I'm going to put my money on the line, risking it for the Blues. Jumping into Sunday, though, Brett, the Capitals versus Devils, I think, is going to be a very good game, and I'm going to take a chance here and say that the Capitals are going to get an empty net goal and cover their -1.5 puck line here. And that's because they have won all six of their matchups against the Devils so far. Now, on Friday night, they are playing as we are speaking, and that game was a 2-1 win, actually. I just checked. It was live as we started recording it, wrapped up in overtime, and Washington won 2-1. So 7-0 now against the Devils. I think they're getting the clean sweep. They have mainly been one goal wins. However, I think they're going to get an empty netter here, and they're going to complete the sweep with a bang, a multi-goal win. Give me -1.5 at +155. The best odds that I've seen on the night of my three puck line picks that I've made. A quick note that I should make, though, Brett, for anyone that's considering tailing me on these hockey bets, two of my hockey bets are away team favorites. In the NHL so far this year, home dogs against the puck line are winning 2/3 of those games, or 2/3 of those bets, excuse me. So, am I being the most practical when looking at that type of data with these? No, but I think these teams specifically are speaking for themselves, and the Sabres are not a quality team. I feel confident betting against them. I think the Washington Capitals, the odds reflect that percentage that I just told you because it's +155 as opposed to the +105 that we see for the Rangers against the Sabres.
Yeah, I don't know what to really make of this Devils Capitals matchup, Higgins. You know, I'm staying away from this one because I just really have no read on the game. I have no sense of how these teams are playing. So I appreciate your take. I think the numbers you gave make a lot of sense. And, it seems reasonable to take a chance on Washington, who's obviously one of the top, three teams in the East, and the Devils are towards the bottom of the standings. So I think that's a reasonable chance there.
And like I said, I am taking the chance because most of their games so far have been one goal differences. 5 of the 7 games, in fact, the Capitals won by 1 goal. So if you're not as confident as I am, take Washington minus 160 on the money line because the Devils at home are 4-11-3 this season. They're gonna lose. Just how much do they lose by?
Just how much? I like it.
Before we get out of here, though, Brett, we do have the Levy Lock pick of the pod. I lost my pick of the pod, so I am down 2 games to you right now. I think I'm going to get it back here, though. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Let's jump right in, though. You obviously have the honors.
Aw, thank you, man. Well, I like both our picks, Higgins. It looks really good for my Final Four chances, but I'll start with mine. I'm going to take Gonzaga minus 14. I think that number's really big. I'm not going to lie to anyone, right? But I think it's big to try and scare people away. I just saw Gonzaga beat USC by 19. So why can't they do the same to UCLA, a team that wasn't as good as USC in the regular season? And, both teams, quote unquote, went on miracle runs. I think sometimes the magic has to come to an end, Higgins, and it's usually when you face a Goliath. And Gonzaga, of all teams, the Gonzaga out of the WCC in Spokane, Washington, is a Goliath in college basketball right now.
Come on, the Pac-12 can't get disrespected by the WCC. It's the Pac-12's coast. Come on, I know it's the West Coast Conference, but you can't give it to them. Selfishly, I hope UCLA keeps it close, maybe close enough that you lose your Levy Lock, because I have the over in that game like I talked about earlier. So I would like a good game that potentially gives me that over.
A smart person would just root for Gonzaga to score 147.
That could happen. Now, I mean, I don't think it's going to, but it could. My pick of the pod, though, is going to be in the other college basketball game on Saturday night, though. Baylor minus 5. Like I said, Houston has played rather well so far in this tournament, but I don't think they have faced nearly the quality of an opponent as Baylor. I mean, they played Oregon State in their Elite 8 game, for Christ's sakes. They played Syracuse in their Sweet 16. They did get a bit lucky along the way, obviously. This is going to be a much bigger step in terms of the level of competition they are facing, and I think Baylor's going to be just a little too much for them. And at minus 5, I'm going to take that any day. I love that line compared to the 14 points you see in the other game.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous with the 5. I think I'm really nervous about the 5 because I'm already laying 14 in the other one. But, it's not that I don't trust Baylor. I think Baylor is an elite team. I think they play with the chip on their shoulder. These are guys that were a little overlooked. Jared Butler is a stud player in the Big 12, and Davion Mitchell has obviously shown how great he is in this tournament. But Houston has a lot of talent too, and a lot of these guys transferred into Houston. These weren't quote unquote like AAC level recruits. These were big time recruits that ended up at Houston. So I don't know if it's your average mid major. Kelvin Sampson's a creative coach, but I would lean your way, Higgins, for sure. I would definitely be Baylor minus 5. Seems like the side I'd want to be on.
Well, selfishly, you should be leaning my way because that would be really good for your bracket. Like we talked about at the top, the Next Best Bet Bracket Challenge has 3 scenarios, 4 people's brackets in play. Should be very interesting to see how all of that really goes, to be honest. Make sure to follow us on social media at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. We'll give you some updates on that bracket challenge, plus some weekend picks as we go through the weekend as well. As always, we will have our episode coming out on Monday. For Brett, though, I'm Jake. This has been episode 128 of the Next Best Bet, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.